You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Great to be here with you today. Can't wait to dive right into today's Training Thursday show, where we are going to be going through the 5 Tibetan exercises that promote overall longevity, wellness, and more virility in the body. So more vitality, more zest for life. So these exercises are something that I've known about for quite some time. And for whatever reason, and I can't exactly always tell you why, sometimes I begin to do a set of movements, exercises, a new nutrition plan to my diet, and then I just let it fade away. It's not something that I do or keep as part of my everyday routine because I do have a set regimented routine. But there are a handful of things that continue to work their way back into my mind every year, 2 years or so. And those things that continually, not haunt you, but continually come back to you, there's something to pay attention to. So for whatever reason, these 5 Tibetans, as they're called, the 5 Tibetan rites, are something I'm going to add back into my routine, and I am going to do them for a full year. So I'm going to do them for all of 2020, and I always want to share with you exactly what I'm doing myself in my life, so that if you want to join me on one of these health challenges where there's really no downside, I invite you to doing that. Now, I've read this book. It had to be a good, I'm going to say 2004. I really believe that's when I read it, because that is when, 2003, 2004, I started to get deep into Qigong-based training and research and philosophy. So Qigong, there are static movements that I used to do, isometric-based movements, a little bit of flowing movement. If you know a little bit about Tai Chi, you can kind of think about or so of what Qigong may be. I've talked about that on a previous show, so you're welcome to check that out at stephencabral.com/podcast. But the reason why I really like the 5 Tibetans that I'm going to share with you all of it today, and I'm also going to give you a download of how to do these 5 simple movements. Super simple. They're not going to replace your current exercise program. They are going to be an add-on that will take no more than 5 minutes of your time once a day. So I'm going to link up, I'm going to give you the photos, I'm going to give you a one-page printout of how to do them at stephencabral.com/1378. This is the same piece of paper I keep with me. There's also a book on how to do the 5 Tibetans, and it's called The Ancient Secret of the Fountain of Youth. Now, there are multiple books written on it. The Eye of Revelation, I believe, was an even previous book to that I read. Now, again, this is at stephencabral.com/1378. I'll link up the books. I'll link up the PDF of how to do it. I will give you everything I can right there at that page. Okay, so let's get right into it. Why would I be getting back into these movements? Because it keeps circulating back in my mind. You have to do this. You have to do this. This is something that will make a difference in your life. Now, I don't know that it will or not, but there's a lot of anecdotal evidence from many people that have used the 5 Tibetans in their life and gotten a lot of their youth and vitality back. Now, I'm going to give you the reasons why from a scientific-based perspective that I believe that's the case. Because in my mind, I am still science-based. I really want to believe, and I stay open to it, because the 5 Tibetans are based on the chakras. And these essentially are, when we look at it in different forms of yoga or Tibetan medicine, however we want to look at it, there are 7 main chakras. And they move through the body from essentially it's called the root chakra, or it's the lowest chakra in the body, right at the base of the spine, And then you have your second chakra. Now, in the 5 Tibetans, these are called vortexes. I'll go over that in just a second. But that's the sacral chakra. And when we look at that specifically, we're talking about that right around 1.5 inches or so below your navel or your belly button. Then the third one is the solar plexus chakra, which when we look at the solar plexus chakra, it's actually not where we would think about the solar plexus, which is like the more of like the chest plate or bone right there in the sternum. But this is actually below your rib cage, right below your rib cage and above the navel. The fourth chakra is the heart chakra. Now that would be more in what we would consider the solar plexus, or right where your heart is located. The fifth one is your throat chakra. A lot of times we hear people as they start to get older talk in a higher voice or maybe a weaker voice. And we can see how the body is getting weaker. So there is something to this, right? And then we have the sixth chakra, which is the brow chakra. And if we look at that specifically, right around that maybe third eye area, right around your eyebrows. And then we have the crown chakra, which is the top of the head. Now, the 5 Tibetans, now they look at this just a little differently. They're looking at these as vortexes, as swirling almost like tornadoes within the body that carry the prana, which is an Ayurvedic term as well, a yogic term in traditional Chinese medicine. They call it qi, right? So qigong, moving the qi. And no matter what you look at it, whether it's Tibetan medicine, whether it is Ayurvedic, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, any of the ancient forms, the Eastern-based forms of medicine, we're looking at the life force in the body. Now, again, it's very difficult to put this into scientific terms, and I wish that I could, right? And I wish that we could see this, but we can't yet now. I'll tell you one thing, they are beginning to find what they're almost looking at as a second lymphatic system that follows the route of the meridians, right? For acupuncture or marma points or acupressure points, that they believe there are actually electrical-based channels in the body that follow what they've talked about in Ayurveda and TCM for thousands and thousands of years. So we're getting there. I'm trying to keep my mind open to it, but my mind is so stuck in Western-based science that I always try to prove how these things could work. So the way that these 5 exercises, and they're basically 5 yoga-based exercises, so they're going to seem very similar. This is not going to be revolutionary unless if you've never done yoga, that's okay. But they're not going to be crazy exercises. The first one's kind of a little funny, to be honest with you. But why would they work? So I have to get this to you because there's a lot of people like me that are just, their mind's so stuck in the science-based part of it. We're always like, prove it to me, right? Prove it to me. So here's what could be happening. During these movements, and I give you them in just 2 minutes, during these movements, the body is actually going through a process of isometric tension. So the body is tensing up. And then after it tenses up, it goes into a relaxation-based phase. We actually, and again, sorry, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's called pandiculation. I believe that's the scientific term for when we think about this. I have a French bulldog, and when he wakes up in the morning, his hands go out in front of him and his hips go up in the air. He does the up and down dog, and keep that in mind because we're going to talk about that in a moment. But his body's tightening every single muscle in his body as he stretches, right? Everything's getting so tense, and then he relaxes. There's this relaxation phase, this pandiculation. Well, what happens? Well, everything's getting tight, and there's actually some capillary restriction. Now, if you think of capillaries or the blood vessels in your body, we're talking about somewhere around 100,000 miles of blood vessels in the body. So if we can stop for a moment and we can think about stretching or like a yawn where everything's tightening up and then it relaxes. Well, that relaxation phase then allows, after the constriction, there's relaxation. We allow for that calming of the autonomic nervous system and a rush of oxygen to all of the tissues in the body. And that oxygen brings with it what? Well, it brings with it life. It brings with it nutrients. It brings with it the fuel for the mitochondria, the fuel for the tissues, to actually change the pH of the muscle tissues and start to do something else. And here's what else it may do. Again, these are just my working theories. It's my working theories for why these may work. Now, it may actually work directly on the chakras. Absolutely. It can be doing that. I'm not knowledgeable enough or understand enough of how the chakras move within the body. And again, I've studied them, I've looked into it. I'm not the expert on that, but I'm open to it, right? I keep my mind open to everything. A lot of my colleagues would say, that's ridiculous, no such thing, prove it to me. Yet you have to stay open. You have to stay open, right? You have to be an integrative health practitioner where even if you don't fully understand yet, you can say, okay, there could be multiple causal factors. Let me keep my mind open to this. Why has it been around for thousands of years? In this case, 10,000 years. Why has it been around that long? There may be something to it. Let me keep my mind open to it. So I look at multiple ways. It can directly affect the 7 chakras or chakras of the body, right? But what else could it do? Well, as we are constricting and relaxing those blood vessels, what else happens is this. We actually get a pumping of the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system is what helps to what? Detox all of the cellular matrix in the body. So it takes all of the waste from your cells, because remember, your cells are living things. What do they produce? Well, they take in nutrients and they produce waste. They are a microcosm of our entire body, the macrocosm, right? And our bodies are a microcosm in this world and universe. So when we look at that, we say, oh, okay, as we tense and relax, what's it doing? Well, it's bringing oxygen in, moving our body, and it's allowing for that movement of the lymphatic system. And as we start to move the lymphatic system, we begin to drain waste, right? And if we can keep this cellular organism, our body, clean, it's going to live longer. And that's just the way that it is. So these are anti-aging based exercises. I want to go through them right now. But the way that they were found out, the way that they were brought back to the U.S. was actually from who is referred to as Colonel Bradford. Now, again, this is Peter Kelder, and I think that's a pseudonym as well. But Colonel Bradford, and again, you know I go deep on research. I'm not willing to take things at face value. Colonel Bradford, his real name was Major General Sir Wilfrid Malleson. I know it's a mouthful, but he was a Major General in the British Indian Army and led a major mission in Turkestan during the Russian Civil War. Because I'm like, how did this person find out about all of this? Because as much as I love myths and origin stories, I want to say, is this actually true? So I go back and I say, okay, this person existed, and he would have been in India, more specifically around the Himalayas, and heard and seen these, they were called lamas, in the monastery, who practiced these, and he saw these lamas and heard about these lamas who were living a very long life, but they were living a youthful life. So at 80 years old, 100 years old, they looked and acted youthful. They could climb the mountains with ease. And Colonel Bradford wanted that. Again, he was getting older, and he was getting ready to retire from the army in a bit. Well, what happened was, after he did retire, a few years went by, and his body was not in very good shape. He was around his 50s, 60s, at least when he went over there. He was walking with a cane. He was slouched over. His body was in pain. His beard and mustache, they said, were already white-gray. And when he went over there, and this is from him telling the author of the book, that his body was aged. They actually referred to him as the Ancient One, not because of wisdom and knowledge, but because he looked well past his age. He looked older. His body, I mean, one thing you could say, it was war-torn. It was battle-weary, right? He was worn down. And he began to practice these exercises in the monastery. Now, he also ate a very simple diet. He practiced what we would call a meditation or chanting, but he said, yes, the nutrition matters, and you'll learn about that in this book as well. But what we talk about, it's living simply. It's eating simply. It's not eating heavy foods. And I talked about this even just yesterday, right? I talked about this on the Game Changers documentary, and I talked about this. That's why every day I try to add just a little bit on the Cabral Concept podcast, but it's just not about eating too much. If you eat some meat, okay, like that was not the point of yesterday's conversation. Not a lot, right? Not a lot. And these exercises, though, brought vitality back to his body. So much so that with each passing month, he didn't need his cane. that he started to actually look more youthful. And when he came back to the United States, people didn't even recognize him from when before he left. Now, maybe myth, maybe legend, maybe not. But I'll tell you this, these exercises, I have no doubt that they work because of just the science that I just gave you a little bit ago. So I want to add them into my routine, and I would love to see how much they work for me. And since they only take 5 minutes a day, I would love you to see if they work for you as well. You can actually just use them as a warm-up before your actual exercise or workout for the day. That's what I plan to do, but I would also like to add them to my morning exercise, my morning movements, right? So I might try to do that as well. I'm going to see where it fits within my routine, within my program. And I don't want to take away from my exercise program. I want to add just 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes, but they should be done every single day. That he said no more than 1 day off per week. And this can be done at any age. So I'm going to give you the exercises right now. But again, to restore youthfulness, to restore vitality. I would love it if you've never exercised in years or you haven't exercised in your entire life. This is meant to be done 21 times per movement. I don't even want to call them exercises per movement. But if you can only do 5 or 6 or 7, that's all I want you to do. That's it. 5 or 6 or 7 repetitions. That's it. And then as your body gets stronger, you can do a little bit more. Now, maybe you just do 7 and you do it twice a day. That would be fine as well. You just do a couple reps. That's all. Your body will get stronger over time. There's no doubt about it. If you're 80 years old, listen to this. Do 1 or 2 repetitions. Do it only half range of motion if that's all you have. Start somewhere. Remember, never let what you can't do ever get in the way of what you can. Do a half a repetition. Do whatever you can. Read the PDF. Look at the PDF. Breathe in your seat. Do something to begin to restore your vitality, because maybe you live to 100 years old. Maybe you live to 120. Maybe these exercises are part of that. Colonel Bradford, again, you know I do my research. I said, okay, this is restoring vitality. This is helping with the fountain of youth. Great. How long did Colonel Bradford live? Well, he was born in 1866. He died in 1946. I went deeper. I said, why did he die at 80 years old? This is the fountain of youth, right? Well, here's the thing. He smoked a pack or 2 of cigarettes every single day. Died of throat cancer. Still not a good idea. I don't think exercise can overcome smoking 2 packs a day. Probably nothing worse that you can do for your health than smoke cigarettes. Eating processed sugar is up there. Still not worse with breathing smoke into your lungs. So whether you're smoking cigarettes, you're vaping, you're doing anything else, do not breathe carcinogens into your lungs. All right, just a little bit of a public service announcement there. But living at 80 years old, being born in 1866 is quite a feat. That would have put him in basically the 1%, because people's life expectancy certainly was not more than the early 50s. I actually believe being born in the 1800s, the life expectancy was only 40 years old. So, when you look at that, for him to live to be 80, that's great, right? So if our life expectancy went down 1 year, believe it or not now, again, right, with all this medical intervention, we're actually living less, right? We're not living as long, and certainly not with the same quality. So if life expectancy now is 76 years old, 77, 78 years old, I don't think you're going to double it. I don't think you're going to live to 150. Maybe you will. I mean, that would be fantastic, right? If you had the vitality. So I always tell people, whether I live to 80, 90, 100 years old or beyond, I want to live it with vigor and vitality and zest for life. I want the years to have life, right? That's what it's all about. I don't want to be decrepit in my 70s, 80s. And if you are feeling worn down right now, please begin to change your nutrition. Begin to detoxify your body. Follow the de-stress protocol. Read the rain barrel effect. Read it 3 times. Read it 5 times. Absorb it, and then begin to live it. If you're not living it, go back and read it again. And do that until you start to live it. And again, that book, all of the proceeds from that book go to charity. So I just want you to know that. The book is meant to live it, right? Begin to live it, and I'm trying to live it more myself as well. Okay. 5 simple exercises. Why did I go on talking so much about it? Because if you don't know the why behind what you do, it will never stick, okay? So people could just say, and I know that they will, why did you not just give us the 5 exercises? Because you will look at them in their simplicity and you will say, no big deal. But you have to understand where they came from. In this monastery, and this has been proven, by the way, this is through Tibetan Tibetan medicine, we'll just call it, or Tibetan philosophy. These have been proven. These have been done for thousands of years. They match up with ancient yoga-based practices as well in Ayurveda. These have been done for thousands and thousands of years. There is something to them. It increases flexibility. It increases blood flow through the body. It works the heart and lungs. It pushes on the capillaries. It increases oxygen. It moves the lymphatic system. These will work, right? Whether it doubles your lifespan, whether it gives you more longevity, I don't know. But you'll most likely be healthier doing these, and that is the why. That's why I do this podcast. People say, just give me the transcript. I'm not going to give you the transcript. And the reason is why. The reason is you have to know the methodologies of how these things work. If I just give someone a nutritional supplement and they don't know why it's going to work, it's no big deal. You could use anyone from any company. You could buy it at your local GNC, and you don't understand where it comes from, how it's processed, what minerals it's chelated with, how it binds and it gets absorbed by the body. You always need to know the why. That is why I want you to begin to go deeper in your own health. Read more, listen to more podcasts, read more books, get deeper into it. Rather than just articles, read more books. Get deeper into this. Okay, now I'm going to give you those 5 exercises. So the first one is this, and it has the best name, the whirling dervishes. I believe, actually, now that I just set it up, I believe they're called the whirling dervishes. And here's the thing, and again, these are easy to do. So what you are going to do, and this is very important, you are going to spin, and this is why I said the first one's a little funny. You are going to spin from your left to your right, always clockwise, never counterclockwise. And you're going to spin from right to left. And what that's going to allow you to do is start to get that movement into the body, right? So that's the very first one. And again, I hope that you're at StephenCabral.com/1378 and you've opened the PDF to be able to see these specific exercises. So you're going to do that 21 times. Move slowly. Look over your right thumb as you begin to spin, and that will help you track, right? So you won't get as dizzy. Now again, start with 7. Move slowly. Do whatever you can, working up to 21 exercises or 21 movements each time. The second one is, I'm actually going to do one up for you. I'm going to embed a video taking you through this as well. All right. I'm going to find a video on YouTube and I'm going to embed it today as well at StephenCabral.com/1378. The second one is this. It's essentially a leg lift like you would do to train your abdominal muscles, your abs. But you're going to move your head and neck and chin towards your chest as you pull with straight knees, your legs up above your hips. So you're really contracting and drawing in your abdomen. And then after that, you're going to allow your legs to come down. Now, with each one of these, you have to work on your breathing as well, right? So you have to work on the specific breath with each single movement. There's a breath in and there's a breath out. And I'm going to let the video take you through that as well as the PDF. Now, the next one, exercise number 3, you'll know if you've ever taken yoga before, and it's like the camel pose. We just call it a back bend in personal training or fitness. What you're going to do is put your hands on your hips or your glutes, and you're going to lean back. You're going to be kneeling down on both knees. Okay, your feet are going to be on the floor, the balls of your feet. You're going to look up to the ceiling, and you're just going to stretch backwards, bending and basically arching your lower back, stretching out your hip flexors. You're going to be opening up your abdomen, and then as you are stretching, basically making a half moon, you're going to come back, and then you're going to bring your chin towards your chest. So basically, these are almost like a cat and cow position on your knees. If you've never heard of the cat and cow, it's a great one to look up as well. So what this is always doing, this is moving the spine. It's opening up those hip flexors, right? The camel-based pose. Now, the next one is going to be the most challenging for most people. It's something like a tabletop pose, we sometimes call it. And again, it's semantics. They're just names. But a tabletop pose, people call it a crab pose. People call it all sorts of different things. But you're going to put your hands in a position facing towards your feet. You're sitting down right now on your glutes. Legs are outstretched, body's vertical, and you're going to lift your hips up in the air so that your arms are straight and your knees are at a right angle. Now, your body literally looks like a table. That's it. The whole body's straight. Now your arms are straight. They're perpendicular to your body. And your tibia and fibula from your knee down to your ankle are also straight. So we have the body in a tabletop. And again, check out the image to see how to do this. What if you can only get 2 inches off the ground in this pose? Great. Get 2 inches off the ground in this pose. And in 2 weeks from now, maybe get 1 more inch. That's all that matters is move forward progress. That's it. You'll be able to do all these exercises 21 times within 6 weeks. You really will. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But 21 times is the goal, and only once per day. I'm going to do mine. I'm going to try to do mine as my morning routine. If I just feel like it's just too much added to my morning routine, I'll do them before my exercises when I do my exercise workout. But no matter what, I'm going to do these once a day. And the last one is one of those tried and true exercises, the up and the down dog, or up and down facing dog, upward and downward facing dog. And this is a great one, stretches out the whole body. But what is it doing? Almost all of these poses are essentially stretching out the back part of your body and spine and the front part of your body, right? So as your hips come down to the ground in that upward facing dog, you're stretching out your abdomen, your hip flexors, opening up your chest, your neck, your SCM muscles in your neck, and you're looking up. And each one of these, you're working with the breath. It's extremely important. And the next one is you're doing the downward facing dog. You are stretching out your calves, your hamstrings, your lower back. So great exercises. No matter what, you're going to get benefit in just the movement and the flexibility, but the oxygen, the capillary pumping, the pendiculation, the lymphatic drainage, all of that's going to come with it. So I could go on and on about this. I'm actually pretty excited about it. I love adding new routines into my repertoire, especially those that I believe are going to add a lot of value to my life. So hopefully today's podcast was helpful. Hopefully you keep an open mind. And again, I see very little downside to doing these 5 exercises. I only see upside. I hope you'll take advantage of it. Take care, everyone. Head on over to stephencabral.com/1378 for details. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp hearts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.